Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the 180 Drums podcast. My name is Mark Schroer, and today we have a very exciting special guest on the podcast with us. We have Chris Reeves, the drummer of Filter, along with our usual 180 Drums host, Jake Nicole. Chris talks a lot about moving from Australia to LA to pursue music. He gets into some tour tips with us, drumming psychology and how we all learn differently, and he gives us a breakdown of his current touring drum setup. Well, with no further ado, please welcome Chris Reeves and Jake Nicole.
Dude, so good to have you on the show, man.
What's up, man? Thanks for having me.
Now, just so everybody knows, before we get into the podcast, Chris and I were just laughing because I'm in Canada where there is snow everywhere, and Chris is boasting about the fact that he's over in Cali. He's got the windows open, birds are chirping, he's in a tank top. Dude, amazing. So, man, what did I miss in your bio? Give us a little bit more of a background on your career so far and how you've ended up with Filter. Give us a quick rundown.
The short story is that I was getting Skype lessons with our buddy Jeff Friedel from A Perfect Circle.
The lefty, the famous lefty.
The famous lefty, yep. So, yeah, we were doing that for a little while, and for those that don't know, Jeff used to play for Filter as well. And he calls me up one day and he's like, hey, dude, just letting you know that this band I used to play for, Filter, are looking for a drummer, but you're sitting there in Perth, Australia, and they need a drummer, like, now. So just wanted to let you know to get your ass to America and see you later. And he sort of hung up the phone, and I was like...
No way.
And I was just, like, amazed and crushed and flattered and, like, everything all at the same time.
No kidding. Wow.
And then fast forward 6 months... another friend of mine, Umi, who I was in a band with in Australia, meets Richard, the singer, at a party out here in Los Angeles.
No way.
Yep, they decide to work together, and all of a sudden, Umi's recommending me as a drummer. Jeff is recommending me as a drummer to Rich, and then Richard's like, all right, who is this guy? Let's try and get him to America. And it kind of went from there.
Now, did your, at the time, Australian band member hate himself for referring you? How did he feel about that?
Well, considering he got the gig as well, I reckon he was pretty stoked.
Oh, cool, man. Now, what instrument was he playing?
Guitar,
dude. How cool is that, man?
Yeah. So he was it was a great situation. Very grateful to those guys.
Absolutely. Dude, that's amazing. So, okay, that's how you kind of got your break. But talk to us beforehand. You were in Australia. What kind of things did you do to prepare? Because you wrote a great article that everybody can check out if they head to 180drums.com/Chris R. So, dude, talk to us. Like, what else did you do to prepare yourself to be a professional drummer, man?
Well, I was playing covers for about 10 years, I reckon, in Perth, Australia. And that really, really hones your skills as like a performer, because when you're out there doing 4, 5, 6, even 7 nights a week,
yeah,
you know, and some of those shows are 3 hours long as well. It really gets your live chops happening, and you learn how to deal with every situation very, very quickly. Considering, you know, if you look at sort of the schedule of guys in original bands, they might average 1 gig a week, maybe every fortnight. Yeah. And then, you know, think about all the things that can go wrong during a live show and all the thoughts that you might have, all the distractions that you might have. If you're only doing 1 gig a week or every couple of weeks, it's going to take longer to get used to all of those like situations, you know, whereas if you're doing like 6 nights a week, you sort of figure out your live chops very quickly.
Yes, absolutely.
So on top of that, I was also teaching full time at like schools and academies, and there was government stuff and there was private stuff, all of the above.
Wow, government teaching. What does that look like?
Well, it's just there was a program in Perth called School of Instrumental Music, and it was a sort of a foundation that provided its services to the government and serviced all the schools, like elementary schools, I guess you call them out here.
Right.
And they would send teachers into the schools and you run curriculum for the school. So you have to grade people and do all that kind of thing.
Right. Very cool, man. Okay, so that's a great place to start. You're essentially making a full-time living playing drums at that point.
Yep.
Now, you also, in this article, something that I love, the word that kept coming up was psychology and physiology. So run us through the significance of those two elements of drumming.
In drumming, well, I guess it sort of all dawned on me at a relatively young age because I had a massive interest in psychology when I was a kid, and still do. I find it fascinating, and it all just boils down to like everybody is different, everybody thinks differently, everybody feels differently, and everybody moves different as well. Like, you know, a 5-year-old girl is gonna move and think very differently to a 35-year-old like male.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. You know, so the methods that you would use to learn and teach at 5 years old are going to be very, very different to, you know, later in life.
Yes.
And even as 5-year-olds, you know, you can get different 5-year-olds that are into like maths and patterns and puzzles and all those logic kind of based things.
Yes.
And then you can get other people that are really into like dance, and, you know, you can get like little guys that just love their martial arts or something like that. And they're all they're like movement and coordination based.
Interesting. Dude, what are some good books for people to dive in and wrap their head around further what you're talking about? Because this almost sounds like some NLP, like a little bit of NLP, neurological programming, like a little bit of that. Where does this come from for you? What are some books you read that inspired this way of thinking?
Wow, this is a long time ago.
Cool, man. But it's cool that it's carried over so much into today, how you seem to think about body movement and body mechanics and learning, right? That's really cool, man.
Cool, yeah. Well, it's definitely helped, and it's helped in my own playing as well. Because if I'm ever faced with some kind of pattern or situation, I just kind of keep thinking my way around it until something clicks and I get it.
Cool.
So if there's a really like gnarly pattern that's, you know, hard to remember or hard to play or something like that, I'll just throw myself different approaches. Like, you know, if you can think about it melodically, like a wicked example was Paradiddles.
Yes.
That one, that clicked for me in one. I doubled this is no joke. I doubled my speed in pretty much one day with Paradiddles. And it was because I was trying to think too logically about it. Like I was, like I'm very math orientated as well, maths and science. So naturally, I try and do that in all of my playing, like, and all of my decisions. They're all very logic based, and so therefore, I was approaching that kind of mentality with Paradiddles. And I think it was probably around age 19. I was trying to think about Paradiddles like right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left. There's your pattern, yeah?
Yeah.
And as it gets quicker and quicker, your brain has to think about that quicker and quicker. So eventually it bottoms out.
Right.
So if you're going to think right, left, right, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, that's about as fast as I could think about it without getting mixed up, you know?
Yeah.
And then it was actually a lick that I saw Akira Jimbo do many, many years ago. And it was this cool lick. I can't remember where I saw it. It may have been on one of his DVDs, or it would have been a VHS back then.
No kidding, dude.
Giving away the age.
That's right, with Dave Weckl with the mullet, all those vids.
That's the one. Yep. So I saw him do this one lick that I just found fascinating. And it was basically, if you're sitting on a 5-piece drum kit, for instance, your right hand is on the floor tom, playing the first note of the paradiddle. Your left hand is on the high tom, playing the second note of the paradiddle. So you've got the para.
Yes.
That kind of thing. And so the para was on the toms, and then the diddles were moved to the snare drum. So you get para diddle on the snare. And And I started playing this lick, and then all of a sudden I stopped feeling the right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left, and I just started hearing the melody of it.
Dagga dig it, dagga did it, dagga did it. Yeah.
Well, even less. I started hearing the actual melody of the toms, because if you leave your right hand on the floor tom and your left hand on the high tom, the first time you do a paradiddle, it goes up. So if you're playing it right-handed, it'll go doom doom. And then on the diddle, so go doom, doom, da, da, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then the second time you do the paradiddle, you hear it go down, doom, doom.
Yeah, totally.
So I started, instead of thinking about 8 things all in a row, I started just thinking about 2, because I'd think about the up, doom, doom, ga, ga, and then the down, doom, doom, ga, ga. So as soon as I started doing that, I started realizing that instead of thinking right, left, right, left, 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 right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, I was just thinking about 2 things. 1, 2, 1, 2.
Right.
And you can think 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2 really fast, you know?
Absolutely.
So I got rid of that sort of logical approach, thinking about the pattern, and started thinking about the melody, and all of a sudden it clicked for me. And I seriously pretty much doubled the speed in a day just by thinking about the melody.
Now that's powerful when it comes to education, man, because if we can unlock, ways to explain that to a lot of people, that can definitely accelerate the process, because you're right, man. Everyone is different, but there are definitely approaches that are going to accelerate the process. Like I find helping students count really early when they're trying to read so that they can't escape and just play something astronomically improves one's reading ability. Would you agree with that?
Definitely, yeah. And there's a whole plethora of theory on counting and stuff as well.
Absolutely.
And a lot of different methods for that too. My favorite one is the fruit method. Have you heard of that?
Yeah, like watermelon, like chocolate, using fruits to explain subdivisions.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
And the way I kind of explained it to a lot of my students is that you use these words because you have a natural way of saying them. Like if you're going to use watermelon as one-eander, I think using that word in the sense watermelon sounds like watermelon. You would never say watermelon.
Yeah. Oh, that's a really
that kind of thing.
Yes.
And same deal with like pear. If you were going to use pear as a quarter note, for instance, you can trick people into feeling the rhythm of quarter notes by the way you say pear. Like if you're gonna walk into a store and see the pear display and point at all of them and say it, you wouldn't go like pear, 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 pear. You would be like pear, 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 pear. It's got its own natural rhythm.
Cool. And so run us through, man. What other fruits do you go to? So pear is your quarter note.
Pear, I love for quarter note. Grape as well, because you kind of have to wrap your mouth around that word a little bit. Grape,
totally.
grape. Pineapple is another cool one for triplets.
Oh, cool.
So if you've got your downbeat there, you can think like pineapple, 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 pineapple. Like you would never say pineapple, pineapple, pineapple. So you use the natural rhythm of the word to get that across. And I use that one with like all kinds of students as well. It works really well with like really young students.
Yeah.
Because they, how do you explain to a 5-year-old, or maybe that's a little young, how do you explain to a 7-year-old that you have a certain amount of time between each beat and you have to split that time between 3?
Absolutely.
But if you just say, here's your downbeat, and say the word pineapple and then hit your right hand with every syllable of pineapple, that kid is playing triplets now.
Do you have a go-to for 8th notes as well?
Apple.
That's so funny. This is the one that I thought of earlier. Cool.
So yeah, and your downbeat's landing here and you're just thinking apple, 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 apple.
Right, yeah.
As opposed to apple, 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 apple. Like it just sounds funny.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So essentially we're just using syllables of words that we pronounce very clearly, typically. Yeah, that's great, man. I love it. So brilliant. What are some of the biggest mistakes you think drummers make that you see more often than not?
The biggest mistake. Well, you can get really profound with this.
No kidding. Yeah, no kidding.
The biggest mistake, I think, really ties into this. It's thinking that someone else's way is your way. So, techniques and stuff like that. Like if your favorite drummer on the planet uses traditional grip, but your left hand just hates it and it struggles with it, but you can play match grip just fine.
Yes.
I think people lose a lot of sleep over those kinds of things, and like they think they're failing as a musician and whatever because they just can't nail this technique. And it's like, maybe it's just not for you. Maybe you should move on and just play matched and love it,
Yeah, that's great.
And then same deal with lots of other techniques as well. Like what would be an interesting one? I suppose speed would be an interesting one. If your favorite drummers are just crazy fast, people would get disheartened often because they're not fast,
Absolutely.
And it's because someone else has taken the time to run all those exercises and everything, and you just kind of judge yourself back on it. Does that kind of make sense?
It totally does, man. I think something people fall into a lot too is feeling like the chops game is really relevant to getting gigs, which it very much isn't.
It's the complete opposite.
Absolutely.
That's a really big one.
Well, it's funny because I was just describing to a student the other day. They were asking a question about learning paradiddles, and we were practicing paradiddle fills, and I said, all right, now it's time to not think about that like a paradiddle, because I said, do you think anyone in the audience typically even knows when you're doing a drum fill? People don't. It's just, oh, that sounded cool. Like, do you know when a guitar player plays a guitar fill or they accent something? You just think, oh, that part of the music sounded cool. So if you're thinking like, man, I got to play my paradiddle drum fill in this spot, you're screwed.
Yeah. I use a similar analogy with that with a lot of my students. As far as rudiments go, I kind of attribute rudiments to like the exercises of drums versus the actual sport or whatever that an exercise would be applied to. Like my favorite one is think of like a paradiddle as a push up and drumming as like football or something like that. Right. And it's like you would do a lot of push-ups to make yourself stronger for a lot of aspects of football. Yeah, but if you were going to play a game of football on national television and drop down in the middle of the field and start doing push-ups, it's going to be pretty funny. And it's the same kind of deal with drumming. Like if you're just playing a beat and then you're like, all right, I'm going to do a paradiddle. Like anyone that's remotely drum orientated in the audience is going to spot it a mile away. They're like, oh, well, that was a paradiddle fill.
Absolutely.
And you're using it for the, just the sake of it rather than the function of it, which is to turn your lead hand around. That kind of thing.
Absolutely. That's great, man. I hope you guys are taking notes, everyone listening. I know that you can head to 180drums.com/Chris R and check this all out, but I'm taking notes because, man, when you write stuff down, it gets locked up in that beautiful brain, so.
Yep.
Yeah, no kidding. Dude, what have been some of your biggest learning lessons as a touring drummer and while on the way? So, obviously, learning to make things melodic and learning to understand, essentially, the meta model for learning, like how you learn. But what have been other great learning lessons?
Learning on the road. The biggest lesson that anyone has to learn is patience, because it is taxing for a lot of reasons, especially things like bus tours and stuff like that. It's taxing on the muscles. It's taxing on the mind. Yeah, I suppose a really big one is pacing yourself. I had to learn that one pretty quickly. We were on tour last year. It was actually my first big US tour, and I had some pre-warning beforehand from my buddy Jeff, and it was all just about like saving your muscles and what like 100% effort on stage looks like versus 110%.
Wow.
And it was actually to go the other way, like not to give it 110. It was that, if you're up there and you are beating the living snot out of your snare drum, doing that 7 nights in a row is going to start really weighing down on your wrists and your tendons and everything in there. And then it was actually his advice. He was like, film yourself playing as hard as you can, and then film yourself playing slightly less hard but still getting your arms up as high.
Cool.
And he's like, look at the difference. And I did that on my first few shows. Like I belted the snot out of it because, I'm on tour in America and doing this thing.
Yeah.
And I did that, and then I did start feeling a little bit of like wear and tear on my wrists. And then I filmed myself the next few nights not doing that, like still getting my arms up really high but pacing myself throughout the set and, really laying into the songs that super needed it. But the other songs where there might be slightly softer or whatever, still getting my arms up high, the tone is still there. I'm just not hitting it as hard as I can,
Absolutely. Yeah, no kidding.
And then when I looked at the videos, I couldn't really tell the difference.
Wow.
It looks really, really similar, and it sounded similar as well. In fact, I kind of dug the sound of the not belting it as hard as I can.
Absolutely. Giving the drums some room to breathe, man.
Yeah. So what I learned sort of really quickly is that if I had kept just belting that as hard as I can for 6 weeks in a row, I was going to wind up with some nasty like carpal tunnel or RSI pretty quick. And then like just pacing it, I got through it every night, like piece of cake, no worries, no pain, no nothing.
Cool, man.
That was probably the biggest lesson.
That's great, man. And what would you tell drummers that are up and coming? What do you think they should spend most of their time focusing on? Or to put it another way, if you had to rebuild everything and you knew you had no contacts, you knew nobody, what would you do different?
I would at least try and make contacts in a city, like in a major music city, much earlier in life.
Yes.
And I mean, when I was young, we didn't, have Skype and stuff like that. So that was a lot harder to do back then. Like if you wanted to come and make contacts and everything, you had to come to Los Angeles physically.
Right.
Like you couldn't just pen pal with someone.
So old, Chris. So old, man.
I know. I'm showing the age. So yeah, I would say like my biggest advice to up and comers is, you got to work on your groove. That it has to feel good. No matter what you do, it's got to feel good and it's going to sound good. Once you've got that in check, it's really about getting yourself out there. And there's a lot of ways to do that now, and a lot of ways that I think are really efficient too. Things like starting a YouTube channel and putting covers out and stuff like that is like awesome. It's really, really cool, but there is a huge market for it now, and there's a lot of people doing it.
Absolutely.
So it's really hard to stand out.
Yeah, I think drummers are almost at this point, this is something that I talked about with Luke Holland because he's had such great success. And even Luke said, he goes, man, I got in at the right time. I don't know that it's the time anymore,
Exactly. Yeah. Because all the guys like Luke and Kovis and all them, they're all like, they have cornered that market and like they're the most popular, and it's really hard to compete with that and stand out against it. Not that it's a competition, but for up and comers, it's going to be really hard to get like a few million hits on your drumming video.
Absolutely.
In comparison. So I think much more efficient ways is trying to make connections with people that are already in the places you want to be.
Right.
So my favorite way has been Skype lessons. Like really getting to know and getting to pick your brains of your favorite drummers. Like another guy who has been really critical, and everything I've done out here has been Mark Schulman.
Oh, cool, man.
And I love that guy. He's incredible. He's helped so much, and he was a mentor of mine. I approached him last year when I got to LA. I discovered that he does Skype lessons. This is like a promo for Mark right now.
Totally, man. It's great.
So I discovered that he did the lessons, and I thought I would love to know how he feels about such and such situation, and pick his brain on a lot of things. And I knew that he was based in Los Angeles. So I wrote to him, and he got back to me and was like, sure, yeah, let's hook up. And I did, and we hung out a lot. And he really helped, and he was really critical in a lot of factors of last year. It was a great guy. And the cool thing is, like, that doesn't limit only Los Angeles,
Yeah,
you can do that anywhere because of Skype. So the biggest thing that I'm recommending to everyone is, like, go out online and meet all the people you can that do these Skype lessons.
Dude, yes.
You can pick their brains, and not everybody is going to be, like, willing to just help.
Yes,
because it takes a special kind of human to just help.
Absolutely.
But lots of these guys are cool, and they have some amazing advice, and it's worth listening to.
Big time, man. What would you say? So right away, that's incredibly insightful. Say someone goes, Chris, I want to do a lesson with you. What's the best way for them to get in touch with you? Do you have an email address you want to share?
Yeah, I actually do it through my sponsor out here, which is Anzus Artists, and that is www.anzus@gmail.com.
Okay.
So anzusus@gmail.com.
Okay, so ANZUS and then another US?
That's right.
Okay, at Gmail. Great. Cool, man. Well, that'll be included in the show notes for everyone to check out for sure as well.
Right on.
Dude, this is awesome, man. This is incredibly insightful. Now, I want to quickly ask you, Cirque du Soleil.
Yes.
What happened to you, man? Your whole world got turned upside down.
Yeah, much to my parents' dismay.
Oh, I love it. Okay. So, for everybody listening, Chris, give us the breakdown. What happened, dude?
Well, I'd always been into drums and drumming from a very, very young age. Allegedly, I destroyed all my parents' pots and pans at age 2.
Nice. I love it.
And then it went on from there, and I was just a regular kid who could sort of play drums at age 10, like just, as a 10-year-old plays. And I went on with my life and thought, okay, I want to be like a baseball star right now, and okay, I want to be a architect. Now I want to be a psychologist, and that's kind of where I wound up. And then in my senior years, I went and saw Cirque du Soleil, and it was Saltimbanco. It was the first time I'd ever seen anything like it. It was a circus, and the drummer was on stage. And I knew that these guys were touring the world and everything. And the music was so cool. Like, at the time, I was into, like, Metallica and Pantera and
okay, yes,
like all that kind of stuff. And then I heard Saltimbanco, and it was just like a music I'd never heard before. It was really progressive, a lot of cool fusion-y type things. And the drummer was right there, and I knew he was touring the world doing this cool thing with all these cool costumes and all this stuff. And the penny dropped, like, literally. I was in that audience, and I said to myself, that's exactly what I want to do for the rest of my life, and I don't care how it happens. I'm just going to do it.
Wow.
And the next day, I told my parents I want to quit all my studies. Like,
wow.
Yeah, and I wanted out then and there, and my parents were just gutted, as you can imagine.
Of course.
And I remember my mum gave me the deal. She said, if you stay in school, if you graduate and then go to, move on from there, you can quit all of your major studies and just do like basic schooling just to get your high school diploma, and then move on and do music school if you want to, or go straight into work or whatever, but you've got to graduate. And I'm like, all right, deal.
Deal. We'll find a middle ground, Mom.
Yeah. So I did. I took the next 2 years and I did things like, music and drama and like basic English and all this stuff just to get me through school, because I knew that after that it was music. And that's exactly what I did.
Oh, man, so cool. Now, you also got into drum teching. Is that something that you want to share a little bit about as well?
Yeah, I did a little bit of that back in Australia. I was teaching through a drum academy called the Drum Shop out there, and had a few cool opportunities come up through them, because they were one of the main backline suppliers for Perth. I think the coolest one was that I got to tech for Keith Carlock.
So cool.
So I spent like 8 hours with that dude in Perth.
Ooh.
And he was out with Wayne Krantz and Tal.
Oh my gosh, the best, dude.
Yeah, and the show was just ridiculous. And I got to watch him rehearse all day. And
Now, what did you observe hanging out with Keith? Like, what did you notice?
Well, the crazy thing about Keith is he's got some of the most like strange physical techniques I've ever seen.
His drum setup itself, everything is so strange.
Everything, yeah. And he calls himself out on it all the time as well. He's like, I hold the stick right back here, and like, you're familiar with his traditional grip.
Absolutely, dude.
But he holds it right on the end of the stick, so there's like very, very little rebound coming from the stick.
Yes.
So a lot of it is his own efforts.
Wow, what a guy.
I asked him about it. So throughout the day, I was like young and nerdy and talking drums with him, and I just said, like, dude, how come you do this?
No kidding.
Why do you play like that when all of this other stuff is available? And he said a lot of things, but in a nutshell, it pretty much came down to, he said, like, it works for me, dude.
Wow.
And I'm like, man, like, if you can sound as amazing as you sound and you can do it all and you haven't got carpal tunnel, you haven't got like any worries at all, your back's fine, all this stuff, like, doesn't matter how you do anything.
Yeah.
Just so long as you sound good and you're safe.
Well, dude, what's so amazing about drums is, unlike sports where, if you use, say, incorrect technique where everything's so efficient, drums don't need to be efficient. They can be brute force, and some of that is the coolest sounding stuff ever,
Yeah, absolutely. And, so long as you're within your realms of not hurting yourself.
Yes. Yeah.
You can really get away with anything. And it really makes me giggle when people are like, you must hold your sticks like this, or
Right.
You must use heel down technique. Like if your favorite band's Slipknot, why would you learn heel down technique?
Absolutely.
Like, later in life when you're like, actually, I think I'm starting to enjoy jazz.
Yes.
Like,
yeah.
Go learn heel down technique. Sure.
Absolutely, man.
But it really is an open playing field.
Very cool. Dude, listen, I'm going to ask you a couple more quick questions. I know you've got a busy day as well. You got a busy day probably running off to the beach, you jerk. But
yeah, busy day just chillaxing under the sun.
Amazing. So jealous. Well, listen, let me ask you a couple more things. First, quickly describe your drum set for us. Describe what drums you're playing, what cymbals you're playing, what companies you represent.
Right on, dude. I am playing Q drums. Out on the road this year, I'm taking a galvanized steel kit.
Oh, so jealous.
Man.
Jealous.
That was the first Q kit I ever heard, and I heard that they were good, but when I heard one, it was stupid. Like, I can't even explain.
This is how I feel right now, man, because we just got off the podcast with Jeremy, and I was just at NAMM where you and I met as well. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you got to witness me losing my mind over the drums, but I lost my mind.
Yeah, the steel kit that was there.
Oh.
Dude,
Goodness.
I don't know how he's doing what he's doing, but I hope he keeps doing it because
Yes.
they are the coolest sounding drums I've ever heard.
Yes, dude. I'm with you, man. So you're taking a galvanized steel kit out. What sizes?
It'll be 24 by 16.
His favorite.
Yep, and then 13, 16, 18 toms. And I run floor toms on the left and right.
Oh, cool, man. Is
Uh,
the 18s on the left?
18's on the left, yeah, because I'm a
Cool.
open left-handed player.
Oh, that is so cool, man. Because we were talking about paradiddles earlier, and I was going to address the fact that I've taught myself to play open-handed as well because I love the sound of starting a paradiddle with the left hand high to low. You know?
Exactly. Yep.
Oh, left-handed kind of makes more sense on a right-handed setup drum set. It's very funny that way.
I know, right? I know.
Hilarious. Okay, cool. So 13, 16, your 18's on the left, and what kind of snare drum are you playing?
We're still undecided for the run this year. I love the copper stuff.
Yes.
The 14 by 7. I might be taking a copper out. I might be taking an aluminum. Those are amazing as well.
Cool.
Super heavy, like cuts through everything. I actually used an aluminum snare on the new filter video. Not that you can hear it, but you can see it.
Cool, man. Cool.
And as far as cymbals go, it's all Sabian.
Okay, very cool. What cymbals are? Give us the quick rundown if you can remember your list of cymbals.
It is. Well, I'm shipping a lot of stock over from Australia that I still have over there. Lots of my favorite ones. So I'm bringing over the raw bell, the hand hammered raw bell dry ride.
Yes,
That's
classic.
one of my favorites. Just the craziest bell. But I'm also bringing over a 21-inch HHX groove ride in Brilliant, which could possibly be my favorite cymbal ever.
Dude, that's one of the most versatile cymbals out there for sure.
It's so cool, and then especially in the Brilliant finish as well. It's got a lot of shine, like a lot of not physical shine.
Yes. I got you.
It's very bright.
It's so shiny, man. Let's just talk about how shiny it is.
It's so shiny. It looks so cool.
Oh, I love it.
And then as far as hi-hats go, AAX stage hats, 14s.
Okay.
There's a 10-inch AAX splash. The 18-inch HHX Ozone, which I think that would that takes the cake as my favorite cymbal I've ever heard, and I use it on every gig. I don't even care what gig it is.
Sick.
It's with me everywhere. And then crashes, I have a 18-inch HHX Evolution, and I think it's a 19-inch AAX Explosion Crash.
Okay.
Oh, HHX Explosion Crash as well. It's not an Evolution Crash. It's Explosion. And that's it. Yeah, it's like simple and easy.
I love it, dude. What kind of drum heads do you go for? Are you a CS dot guy on the toms?
I use codeds all the time.
Okay, coded what? CS dots?
No. Last year it was Evans G2s.
Okay.
And it was an EMAD, I believe.
Okay.
Nice.
Nice.
And then this year maybe something similar. I'm not too sure yet.
Cool. So coded G2s on the toms, and then what about the snare?
Snare was usually a reverse dot.
Cool, man.
Yep. They were killer. What else is there? Sticks, Vic Firth. I'm using the X55A.
Okay.
One of the coolest new sticks I've found. Only discovered it last year on the road, actually.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, it really changed everything. It's kind of that awesome middle ground between the 5A and the rock stick.
Right.
It's not as big and chunky as the rock, but it's kind of got the length and everything. I've got that, and I'm not sure if it was announced yet, but I'm having my own signature stick out on all the tours.
Ooh, sick.
So there's going to be sticks out there available like only at our shows.
Oh, dude, love it.
And Roland as well. Dude, that's a whole other topic. Roland.
Yeah. Okay.
This year, the filter DJ / keyboardist Bobby and myself, we're going to attempt to split up maybe 90% of all of our backing tracks and play them live.
Sick. Love it.
Last year, and it's pretty much what everybody does as well. Like a lot of people just hit play on Pro Tools or an iPad or something like that, and just you play to click, and it's awesome. We found with a lot of this electronic stuff that's on the new album, there's going to be a lot of sitting around,
right?
Like during and between songs, where there's no physical drums or
smart man. So you guys are going to put on the show. I love it.
Yeah. So we're teaming up with Roland, and I'm going to be using SPDSX, and then the new KT10s, one on each side, which are the foot pedals for anyone that doesn't know. I don't know if you've seen them, man, but they are the coolest like electronic foot pedal I've seen in a long time.
I haven't. So when you said for everybody to know, I was really excited.
Yeah, they're really cool. Super low profile. So there's no actual beater. Like the beater is built into the pedal.
Cool.
Okay.
So
it looks, like the old Roland. Well, they're not old. They still have them. Like the foot controller for the hi-hat.
Absolutely, yeah.
It looks like that, but there's like this cool weight system in it. And I tried one out last week, and it feels like a normal kick drum pedal.
Wow.
Like it has an action, and you feel the impact and everything. It feels like that, but it looks like the KT10. So it looks like the hi-hat one, so you can put it like underneath a floor tom and not have it interfere with anything.
Oh, I love it, man. That I have to try.
Yeah, it's so cool. So I'm running one of them on the left and right for various things, and then the new BT1s as well, which is like their bar trigger that you can mount on floor toms and stuff. So I'll be running those as well, and we're going to be playing all of the parts. My goal, I know Bobby's a little scared of this. My goal is to have it all live. And then when Bobby's hands are busy playing key parts or whatever, I can play other synth parts, a la like Akira Jimbo, that kind of thing.
Yes.
Where you play the physical melody. And then what else are we running? We're running the KT10s and the BTs. One of them in every song is going to be set up as a kill switch as well.
Very cool.
For the very sad scenario that something gets missed or whatever.
Yes, dude, absolutely. Absolutely. Man, what we're going to have to do is you and I are going to have to do another podcast where once you've got all that stuff set up and you're operating it, giving us a rundown of how you've, put it all together. And because we have so many guys in the tech community that, like you said, the Roland conversation, that's something that we can really delve into even more in depth. So
yeah, love to.
If you'd love to, man, I'd love to have you for that. That'd be awesome.
Absolutely.
So, dude, last question I'm going to ask you today is if you had to send a message out to everybody in the world, you could send it. It's going to maybe be a postcard that'll be translated into any language, but everybody in the world is going to get this message. What would be the thing you'd want to share? A sentence or just a phrase?
Oh, never give up. No.
Secretly, you do kind of want to say it. I like it.
Secretly, I want to say that. I think my main message would be think outside the box and always aim to further yourself.
Oh, that's great, man. Cool. I'm writing that down.
How profound.
Well, it's funny, man. Like at the end of the day, you could give an A for it. You could do all these different ways to share that message, but to be plain and simple, I think that more people focusing on bettering themselves and self-educating themselves, and also expanding their mind and thinking outside the box. Those are some of the best things we could ask everybody in the world to do. So,
yeah, we get a lot done.
Yeah, you're totally right, man. Well, Chris, listen, you've been such a great guest, dude. I can't wait. Where can they follow you online?
All of my socials are at Reeve Music, REEVE Music.
Awesome. And all that stuff again, guys, you can head to 180drums.com/Chris R and check out all that stuff there. So, dude, thank you so much, man.
Dude, thanks for having me.
Awesome. Any other parting wisdom?
Come to Los Angeles and hang out at the beach in winter.
Oh, done deal. Done. I love it, man. Awesome, dude. Thanks so much for being on the show.
Thanks, man.
Hey, so good to have Chris on the podcast today. Such a rad dude. Make sure to go check out his band Filter. Find him on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, blah, blah, blah. You know the drill. Something that Chris said during the podcast that I personally really liked was that he said the biggest mistake a lot of drummers make is to think that what works for someone else has to work for you. A lot of the times, something that works really well for somebody else doesn't work for you, and that's why it's so important to find your way of learning and what really works for you, and to do that. Anyways, if you enjoyed the podcast, please go rate us. If you enjoyed it, give us a great rating. If you hated it, give us a terrible rating. Anyways, that's it for this week. Stay tuned for next week for another killer podcast from 180 Drums.